Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is a podcast dedicated to helping individuals start and have the premier accounting firms in their areas, offering accounting, bookkeeping, and tax services. I welcome you to join us each and every week as we have a new episode for this podcast. I happen to be your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center, and for more than 20 years, I've actually been working with accounting professionals to help them start and build their accounting businesses with confidence and competence, offering quality accounting services up through and including advisory services, literally becoming for their clients profit and growth experts. One of the things that I want to mention is part of this podcast, we focus on elements such as marketing, sales strategies, pricing, onboarding clients, retaining clients, offering additional services, including new services to generate additional revenue, a lot of things that you can actually implement in your business to in fact have the premier accounting firm in your area. Each episode is unique and different, oftentimes having guests, experts on the show to help answer questions and share insights that you can actually learn from and apply in your own company. So today, I'm happy to welcome Chris Forsey. Chris happens to be someone I've known for years. In fact, I do business with him and really appreciate his services. He's helped us in a lot of ways. Chris happens to be the co-founder of Learner Park Media. It's a creative agency in Salt Lake City, Utah that provides marketing services and solutions to small business owners around the United States. In fact, for all I know, it may be even internationally. He's been featured on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox as an expert in the field of digital marketing. And over the last decade, he's helped hundreds of entrepreneurs successfully market and grow their businesses. In his free time, he can be found at the lake or on the mountain with his wife and 3 children in Salt Lake City, Utah. So Chris, welcome to the show. It's great having you here.
Thanks, Roger. You know I have a lot of respect for you, and so I'm grateful anytime we have the opportunity to talk.
Well, thank you, and the feeling's mutual. Yeah, the thing that I can definitely say is whenever we get together, we have a very natural, comfortable conversation, have a lot of fun, and we've done some business ventures together. I have sent many of my clients to you. One of the things that Chris does a great job at doing is getting social proof, and maybe that'll come up in our conversation today. But let me just kind of go to the beginning. I know some of your story, but why don't you go ahead and share it? How did you get into the world of marketing?
So when I was 21, I went to a marketing conference with my dad put on by a guy named Dan Kennedy and Bill Glazer. I can't remember what it was called. It was something Peak Business Summit that they would do every year, and they'd have 1,000, 2,000 more people come to these events. And for those of you who don't know who Dan Kennedy is, just picture a 65-year-old with a receding hairline, Dwight Schrute glasses, and a Hulk Hogan handlebar mustache. That pretty much sums up his look. But aside from his unique dapper look, he's a really smart marketer. He's well known in the marketing industry. He's written something like 30 something odd books, and he spoke in the famous Success Tour back in the day with Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins, and it runs with that crowd. But anyway, I'm sure he's good at a lot of things, but one of the things that he's really well known for is copywriting. And I'm not talking about the legal right to intellectual property, talking about the act of writing text for the purpose of advertising. And I remember going to that conference with my dad. It was my first kind of exposure to something like that. And I think it was back in Tennessee somewhere, I can't remember, but I remember sitting in the chair and just being really enamored with the idea that words on a page could convince someone else to take an action that I wanted them to take.
Wow.
That concept just really struck me. I remember him saying something to the effect that one good sales letter can change everything for your business. And so after that conference, it just got me excited. I started reading everything I could on marketing, listening to everything I could on copywriting, and at these events, he would have different experts come and speak. And so I was exposed. We went to I don't even know how many events we went to of Dan Kennedy's, but that led to going to other events of other people that we were exposed to, guys like Russell Brunson, for example. That's how I eventually got to know him. Anyway, that it just really it sparked an interest in me. And so after that initial conference and starting to learn everything I could, I told, at the time I was working for my dad's real estate investment company as the grunt worker. I was painting, I was going to school down in Provo at BYU, and I was making money painting houses and doing landscape stuff, just random work on some of their houses to earn some money. And I wanted to put Dan's idea to the test, like that, the idea that one good sales letter could change everything. And so I did. I told my dad, I said, look, I don't want to do the grunt work anymore. Like, give me a shot at something else, at handling the marketing and seeing if I can help here. And so I spent about 2, maybe 3 weeks writing my first sales letter and coming up with, creative ways to make sure that when people got the letter in the mail that they didn't throw it out, but I opened it and actually read it. Back then we're talking direct mail marketing here. And it took me a few tries, but I eventually got it right. And when I did, it just worked. In fact, I was able to, that year I was able to help the company triple their revenue in 12 months. And then from there, it just kept snowballing. I never stopped reading and listening to everything I could about marketing. When I get on Facebook and YouTube, most people see the ads and get annoyed by them. They can't wait to skip them. I'm like, that's literally the reason I get on Facebook and YouTube now, is just to watch the ads and see what other people are doing.
I get it.
Learn whatever I can. So, if you want to learn more about marketing and get better at marketing, you can learn something every day. Just pay attention to what's going on around you. So anyway, I'm a big believer in that, and just always learning. Like Gandhi said, live as if you were to die tomorrow, and learn as if you will live forever.
Very good. I like that quote. That's excellent. So one of the things that's really quite intriguing to me is how you started by sharing this epiphany of the power of the English language, just language in general, that you can, through the writing, the copy that you're producing, compel someone to feel, think, act in a certain way. I think everyone can remember that one book, that poem, that one thing that just resonated to the core, and even became perhaps even a mantra or a motto that you use in life. Just like you just stated the Gandhi quote, all of a sudden that quote of just so many few words means so much more. It's almost like a picture that's now meaning 1,000 words, right? It's invoking so much more to the heart, the soul, and it really compels us to be different. So in marketing, Absolutely. It causes an action. It's meant to actually now compel the person to do something they weren't intending to do when they first picked up the piece. So you're definitely right there. So you have the experience, you all of a sudden have this success. Why start a marketing agency? Why go from all the success in the business you were having to now selling this skill and this talent to others to help them?
Yeah. The honest answer is out of necessity. I think the answer most people want to hear there is, I really wanted to help people and help other businesses. And it's definitely turned into that. That's what I get the most joy out of being able to do every day, is help business owners succeed. That's why I'm still excited about my agency today and what keeps me going. But if I'm being honest, it's not why I started it. I've talked about, how I got into marketing, went from the grunt worker at the real estate investment company to the VP of marketing, and it went really well for a number of years. I mean, for about 5 straight years, we were able to make a lot of money. I would travel the country a lot with my dad, going to different marketing conventions, and we had the time to do that and the money to do that, to just learn from some of the best marketers in the world. And then, taking and applying those things in our business and just seeing the success that we were having from it. It was a lot of fun during those years. Well, you've heard the quote that tough times don't last. Well, I learned that in 2008 that the good times don't last either. The real estate crash hit us really hard. And it was, all of a sudden, seemingly overnight, our income was just dead. And we just about lost everything. Money, cars repoed, our home would have been foreclosed on if we didn't know so many tricks to delay the foreclosure and eventually negotiate a loan modification with the bank. But it was bad. It was a really tough, dark time for me. Luckily I was dating a really awesome girl at that time that ended up becoming my wife. And that was like the one light in my life at that time that helped me out. But we had to pivot. We knew how to negotiate with loss mitigation departments at banks to buy homes. We knew how to market to find new clients. And so we pivoted. Instead of negotiating to buy homes, we started negotiating with loss mit departments for people to help them stay in their home. We went from a real estate investment company to a loan modification company, and that worked out for a period of time. It at least allowed us to keep the lights on, and survive. But we made some fairly big mistakes that we didn't realize were going to be the downfall of that business. What we did was, we used our knowledge and the talents that we learned marketing and copywriting to bring on a lot of new clients, but we had a couple things in our contract that we didn't realize was really going to hurt us. First of all, we allowed people to pay us 50% up front. We'll collect 50% when we get it done, when we finish. And, the average loan modification was taking about 30 days. So that wasn't a big deal. And then we also offered a guarantee that if we didn't get the modification done, we would not only not charge the remaining 50%, but we would refund your first 50%. It was, we did that for a couple of reasons. One, because we were a little desperate at the time, and we knew that in marketing, we've learned that if you can take away all the risk, the sale is easy. And so we did that for that reason, but also we were just confident in what we were doing. We didn't think that was going to be a problem. Well, what we didn't realize was going to happen was that the banks were going to get overloaded. The average time to get a loan modification went from 30 days very quickly to 90 days, and then very quickly to 12, sometimes even 24 months to get these done. Banks would lose modification packages. We'd have to send them in again. We'd have to follow up regularly, multiple times every week to be the squeaky wheel. We'd have to send updated bank statements because too much time would pass, and then redo financial statements every few months, and do this over and over for each client. And it just got out of hand. I mean, so, here we are with all of these clients who we've made guarantees to and who've only paid us 50% so far. And it really quickly just turned into a nightmare, to say the least.
Nice crap show.
We realized that it just wasn't a viable thing to continue doing. And so with the way things were going, we knew we needed to do something different. And at that point, I just wanted to get out of the industry entirely. I just had a bad taste in my mouth, and we had to figure out what to do, but we had to figure out what to do with all these clients too. And so, the options were, we file bankruptcy and leave our clients high and dry, or we figure out how to keep helping them without the income to do so. And so, God bless my wife at the time for supporting me emotionally and financially during that time, because we ended up sticking it out. I worked for over a year with almost no income while we helped get the rest of those loan modifications done. And finally, in 2011, we started to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And we started actually having the time to even think about what we were going to do next, what was next on the horizon. And I remember sitting at my desk one day just thinking, like, what the heck am I going to do? Being worried about my dad too. What the heck is he going to do? It's like in The Princess Bride when they're about to storm the castle. If you've seen that movie, Wesley asks Physique, like, what are our assets, right? And Physique pulls out the cloak. That's when I was sitting there thinking, like, what are my assets? What are our assets? What can we do? Obviously, we'd become really good at marketing and spent a lot of time in that, and that's what I'd become really passionate about. And so we'd spent almost 8 years just studying and learning marketing. And that was like a big focus of ours. So that's when I decided I was going to start an advertising agency. And I shared the idea with my dad. And since, he's been passionate about advertising as well. And I convinced him to come join me. And we started out, just offering a small amount of services that we knew we could help our clients with. And that eventually grew, and we made a partner that allowed us to offer more and more services, and it snowballed from there. And so since then, we've been able to, help a lot of hundreds of businesses. I've been able to work with small 1 or 2 man businesses to large national chain dealerships, and work on projects with guys like Russell Brunson, the founder of ClickFunnels. And it's just been a wild ride and a lot of fun since then.
Well, one of the things that I appreciate about your story, and this is just one of many things, is that the listeners, I think, can relate. You started by sharing how necessity is the mother of all creation or all inventions. I really think that for many of the accounting professionals listening, starting a business, becoming the owner and being an entrepreneur is probably not the thing that they lay awake at night thinking and dreaming about. It's probably out of necessity of trying to initially complement their daytime income with some supplementary income in the weekends and weeknights. It's possibly just people knowing who they are and what they do, asking for help, and they're acquiring a handful of clients just haphazardly. And then all of a sudden, there's this realization of, maybe I can do as well, if not better, with my own business. That then turns from maybe this is a great way to make a living, an income, to all of a sudden, I think I can become passionate about this, really make a difference, really influence my clients, really help them. And all of a sudden, that energy kind of taps into the passion like you were describing of, I love this. I think I make a difference. I think really people are benefiting from what we do. So I think in a very correlating way, the listeners are able to identify with your story and realize whatever's gotten them to this point in their career where they're now running a business offering accounting services, it was probably rocky, just like your own story. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you're at the point now where you're working with business owners. What do you find is the biggest hangup that they experience in their own marketing?
Oh man, I could probably list a handful, but probably maybe one of the biggest, if not the biggest, is just not knowing their numbers. And what I mean by that is not knowing or not understanding how much a client is worth to them and how much they can afford to spend to acquire that new client. There's a really important concept that every entrepreneur should understand, and that is that the business that can spend the most to acquire a new customer will always win, right? If you and I are going after the same market, and I know that I can afford to spend $500 to acquire a new customer, and you may not know your numbers, and you might think you can only spend $100, or maybe you can really can only spend $100, I'm going to win. And so the first step to that is just actually knowing what your numbers are and not being afraid to spend what it takes to acquire that new customer. And so that's probably what I would say there, is just not knowing their numbers.
Excellent. Well, you're speaking to the right crowd because accounting professionals like numbers, but I'm going to actually share your same sentiment. One, accounting is more than just the financial reports. It is the key performance indicators of a business, and a key one for the accountant to know, for the clients to know, is their cost per acquisition. And it's really, what does it cost in marketing and so forth to acquire the customer? And associating with that, then the average revenue per customer with the initial purchase, as well as the lifetime value of the customer. If you have those three numbers, if you know that, like in your example, that the average customer to acquire is a $500 cost, and if your average customer is paying you in their initial purchase, let's say $700, well, that's important to know. And if the lifetime value of that customer is $3,500, it's worth the $500 to get the $700 sale and the $3,500 over the time. But imagine if, for example, it was a little different. Maybe the cost per acquisition was $500, the initial purchase was $200, but the lifetime value of the customer is $5,000. Yeah, you're going to take a loss getting that initial purchase because it's less revenue than maybe what it cost you to get. But obviously, knowing that you're going to make so much more over the long haul, it's worth getting the customer, even though the initial purchase may be less money in revenue than what the cost was to acquire them. But these numbers are the numbers game that we need to be playing. So I like how you illustrated that. So thank you.
Yeah.
So here's my next question. What advice would you give a business owner to grow their business that they should be doing?
So, there's a lot of things there as well. The word that comes to my mind is leverage. When I was like 15 or 16 years old, I used to buy used four-wheelers, ones that needed a little work or needed a little cleaning up, and I would fix them up and sell them for a profit. It was a way for me to make money, but just also something that I enjoyed. And one of the ATVs that I bought, the back corner of the back rack had been bent, probably been rolled over or laid on its side. But because it was bent, I was able to get a really good deal on it, and I was confident that I could just bend it back and make it look nice again and make a good profit on it. So I bought it, I brought it home, and I stood up on the rack thinking that if I put all my 150 pounds of that time body weight on this thing, I could bend it back down. Well, as you can probably guess, that didn't work. Then I proceeded to jump up and down on it. that of course didn't work either. And then my dad came out and he's like, what the heck are you doing? And he said, look, let me show you something. And he went back to the back corner of the garage. He grabbed a long metal pole. It was like, I don't know, 12 or 14 foot pole. And he stuck one end of the pole in between the bars of the rack. And he told me to come back to the other end of the pole. And he just said, just take one hand and just start pushing down on that. And so I did. I started pushing down, and I just watched as that metal rack easily bent back into shape. And that lesson has stuck with me ever since, the power of leverage, and that if you have the right tool, you can leverage that tool to make a difficult job quite easy. And so, I've tried to remember that in business, and, especially in today's day and age with the internet, we have so many different software tools and so much at our fingertips. And so my advice would be to look for ways and tools to help you leverage your time and your money. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that. When I first started out, we started on a shoestring budget, right? We were broke at the time and we didn't have any investment. And so we bootstrapped the agency in the very beginning. And so it was hard to get to that point where we needed to hire someone. We were to a point that, I'm sure a lot of business owners get to, that they desperately need to hire someone, but they can't afford to hire someone. And so, we looked at and said, okay, well, what can we hire someone to do that we can maybe hire them at a lower cost? And so I remember one of the guys I met at one of those Dan Kennedy conferences, I'm trying to remember his name now, Joel or something like that. He had a business that he taught people how to outsource to the Philippines. And I thought, well, that would be cool if we could hire someone in the Philippines for, a third or fourth of the cost of what it would pay someone here. And we've got the tools and the ability to do that, then let's look into that. And so our first few hires were people in the Philippines that are actually still with us today. And so we were able to leverage the ability to have a virtual assistant and some tools to keep track of those virtual assistants to afford to hire someone. There's a lot of other tools and systems that we've used that have helped us leverage our time and the money that we have at the time to be able to grow. And so I think that would be my advice, is just, there's a lot of things at your fingertips these days with the internet. And I would look for ways to leverage those tools.
Leveraging is right. Time is so precious. And if we can find ways to leverage technology to either simplify, streamline the work that we're doing, it buys us the time that we find so precious and need more of. So I like how you mentioned that. So if that's the case, what kind of technology or tools are ones that you're familiar with that you find are helpful? And if it's not just the brand, just the feature, what are some of the features that if you could just find a way to simplify this, it would be helpful?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first thing I would probably say is a good CRM. James Cash Penny said that no business can succeed in any great deal without being properly organized. And I've seen that with my own business, have proven that. So if you want to succeed, you've got to be organized, and a good CRM should help you do that. And I've used a bunch of different CRMs. They all have their pros and cons and reasons, you might choose one over the other. But the most important thing is that you just have somewhere where you can keep a record of your contacts. You can keep data about your contacts and your leads, and then keep notes about calls or actions that you take. And particularly when it comes to leads and marketing, have something. I like to have something like a visual pipeline with different stages of leads, so that I don't have to waste time every day trying to figure out what's next for any particular lead. So having a good CRM system that is going to help you be organized and be able to keep track of what you do, that's probably the first thing that I would say. Another good tool that's really helped us is an email marketing platform. And there's lots of good platforms out there as well. There's the important thing with the email marketing platform, or what it's going to help you do, or what it should help you do, is put in place some sort of automatic nurturing process. I think one of the biggest assets that most business owners don't know they have is their list, whether that's list of current and past clients, or a list of just leads, whether that's a stack of business cards that they've never done anything with. Like having a list of people that you can market to, it's powerful. It's having your own audience. I don't know if you've used to watch the what's that show that Trump used to have, Celebrity Apprentice. There was an episode on that show with Arsenio Hall, and I don't know if you've seen the show, that mainly what they do is they do these big projects, and the celebrities have to figure out how to raise money, and it's like the group that can raise the most money wins, basically. And so I remember this episode with Arsenio Hall, and he was calling all these, obviously he's done this talk show for a long time. He had a lot of contacts, and he's reaching out to all these different people, and nobody's returning. No one's picking up his call. No one's returning his call. And he's like, of course this was after he had his show. And so he's like, man, when I used to have my own show, everybody returned my calls. And so it's because at that time he had an audience. He had people that other people could get in front of. And so having an audience is really powerful. And there's different ways to do that these days with like social media and stuff, but email is still a really powerful marketing tool, one that we use a lot in our business and one that we use a lot with our clients. And so I would recommend that that every business owner have an email marketing platform where they can send out mass emails that sound personable and also have some automation. So, you could take time and write a nurture sequence of emails that would last over a year. And now you've got like a year of follow-up. When you meet a business owner at a marketing event, for example, you get their business card. What do you do with that card? Why not put it into an email automation tool that starts sending them good information on a regular basis and starts portraying you as the expert and doing that follow-up so you can stay top of mind. That all can be put in place and then just automated. And that's a beautiful thing. Let's see. Text messaging is another one that's obviously getting really big right now. A way to incorporate business texting into your business. You can do similar things with texting that you can do with email. Of course, you're going to use them differently. You're not going to be texting someone weekly, even though you could be sending them an email weekly with good content. So there's different ways to use texting, but that's powerful. Some other tools that we've used that have really helped me grow my business is a funnel builder. So, one of the things that we teach business owners is the importance of figuring out a funnel that can bring in new clients. And you don't need to have a bunch of funnels. If you can just figure out one funnel that works for your business that can bring in clients, that can change everything. It's like Dan Kenny said about one good sales letter can change everything. Well, one good sales funnel can change everything. And so, and for those of you who are thinking like, what is he talking about with a funnel? What does that mean? A funnel is just a set of steps. Think about it's like a set of steps a visitor needs to go through before they can reach the conversion. So when I'm talking about like a sales funnel, I'm talking about just basically a series of web pages that's going to walk someone through. So for example, like for a business owner, like an accounting firm, an example of a funnel would be a landing page with an offer on it, say to like get a second look at your taxes, for example, to find potential savings. So someone's going to come to that landing page, put in their name, email, phone number, and to request that second look, that free second look that we put a value on. So you'd have the landing page where they enter their name and email and phone number, and then they go to a second page. Now that second page might just be a thank you page with a call to action. That's a simple two-step funnel. It might be a sales page where you're selling them on your service of actually, taking over their tax preparation, and then a call to action on that page that leads to another thank you page. So, there's different types of funnels, but it's one of the best things you can do for your business is figure out the right type of funnel to help you get clients and get leads. And, it used to be difficult to create these. Things have come a really long way, even in just the last few years. When you wanted to put up a landing page a number of years back to capture leads, you had to hire a designer, then you had to hire a developer to implement that design, then you had to go back and forth with the developer and then back to the designer because things didn't pan out, and it was difficult. Now these days, there's some really easy visual funnel builders, landing page builders that you can create and build with almost zero technical capability, and if you can, and because you can create them so fast now, you can test things quicker and find what works. So that's another big thing is landing page funnel build software. And then maybe the last thing I'll mention is reputation marketing, because that's been one of the things that has helped our clients and us more than almost probably anything else. We noticed a number of years back when Google started allowing reviews to be posted online for local businesses that our clients that had the most reviews, and that not just the most reviews, but that we're getting a consistent flow of reviews and a decent star rating on Google. All of their other marketing worked better. It was easier. It was easier to get them results with their Facebook ads. It was easier to get results with their Google ads. Even their referral marketing worked better. I mean, there was actually a study down in Florida not too long ago, and what they found was that 52% of people who are referred to a business still go online to look up reviews. And so if you want to like make your marketing easier, if you want to make it easier to grow your business, just start getting more reviews on Google and Facebook. And that is something that you should definitely automate as well. If for someone like an accountant that might not be a smaller accounting firm that might not be dealing with a lot of clients, maybe the automation is not so hard, not so important there. But there's tools out there that you can use to make it easy for your client to go post a review for you online. And so that's maybe the last one I would mention there. There's a handful of other tools that we could go through, but hopefully that's helpful.
The listeners, if I were like them, I was sitting here just in awe, kind of checking off as you were doing all of these, like, you're so right about that. You're so right about that. I mean, just to kind of go through it, as you brought up at first, the CRM, you're right. I remember, I'm old enough that I remember going out and you get business cards or you'd get an email, and all of a sudden you've got this contact, maybe even a referral or someone that's reached out, someone you've met, and it's okay. So now what do I do with this? Where do I put it? And I'm old enough to have Rolodexes and such. I mean, it's that ridiculous. But the point is how many of us have a contact and then we lose the information, or more importantly, we get the contact and then we fail to reach out in a timely manner to literally leverage that new connection that we have, and it just goes to waste. And so to have a CRM that kind of helps with reminders and helps kind of manage the flow of what next to do with this person, to capture notes, there's so much to be said about a CRM. And if you've ever worked in any company of any size, they've got some database that they're creating of their customers, and that's no different for an accounting firm. The second thing that you brought up was obviously email marketing. And I think it's best to describe it as, when we make these contacts, 9 times out of 10, it comes with an email, and that's just a natural way to reach out in addition to phone and text. And so sending a person an email and connecting with them, communicating with them that way is very helpful. But the point is how do you then create, like you described, an automated message that can help nurture that relationship to the point that they get value out of that connection that they now have with you, that they start to see you as an expert? There's a lot to be said for a good tool to nurture. And who wants to be writing all these emails and have to remember to sit down and copy and paste and, I sent these people email number 1. I guess I need to send these people email number 2 now. And the manual element of that is just overwhelming. But to have a email system that can automate that, and you can just kind of plug it in and it naturally flows, huge time saver. You brought up texting.
Absolutely.
Texting, that's the thing. And if you want to start appealing to younger clientele, people that run businesses that are in their 20s or 30s, they're going to want to text you, not email you. And so you've got to have that ability to create that same type of interaction at an email level now in a texting environment. You brought up funnels. I cannot say enough about funnels. You brought it up. You described it well. The only addition I would add, this is my learning experience with funnels, is I remember back when I was young, this is junior high, years ago, there were these books that were fun, and they were basically choose your own adventure. And you would read to page 10, and at the bottom of page 10, it said, go to page 15 if you do this, go to page 25 if you do that, go to page 35 if you do.
Choose your own adventure. Yeah. I remember those.
So choose your own adventure. That's what a funnel is. It basically takes you down the sales process in an online environment, and it gives the person choices. But what's unique about the funnel is it also puts you in a position where you can make one-time offers or unique offers that really can kind of speak to the urgency or the opportunity of the moment, to where they're like, well, I guess I need to take advantage of this now. And if you're ever online, I'm sure everybody here has experienced those, but imagine now using those effectively in the accounting world. So definitely funnels. You brought up, let's see, what was social proof. Definitely need to get reviews. You and I can both talk on this forever, but social proofs are huge. Getting the reviews so that we can actually show that our customers like what we're doing. And then one I would add is something that's always been a frustration for me still is calendaring. Going back and forth in email or text. Well, I'm available Tuesday at 9. Well, I'm available not then, but I can do Wednesday at 10. How about just send them a link and they see your calendar and they pick what time's available that meets their needs. Boom, you're done. And so these technologies are hugely important to really eliminate a lot of the memory that we have to have of tasks we should be performing to really nurture the leads we have, the contacts we have, and moving people to becoming customers and clients. So let me just break away real quickly and do a kind of a sponsor plug. And this is a unique one for our listeners, so pay particular attention to this. I was speaking with Chris beforehand, and one of the things we were talking about were technology, and I asked, could we do a webinar, for lack of a better term, a webinar where we talked about technologies. Chris knows so well all of these different tools and technologies that we ought to be using in the accounting world to better systemize our marketing and sales processes, from CRMs to emails and all these other things that he's aware of. And as an expert, he's going to share with us in this webinar exactly what tools we should be using, how to use them effectively, and literally how to incorporate them into our business model as accounting professionals to ultimately get the clients we're wanting. And so what I want to do is, in the episode description of today's podcast, I want you to go to the episode description, and I will be putting there the link, the information you need to join in and listen to this webinar. It's going to be an excellent thing. And the reason why I'm saying webinar as opposed to another podcast is he's going to be able, through slides and visuals, show us what he's talking about. He's going to be able to walk us through a lot of this. And I really believe this is exactly what you need to see in order to understand these technologies and how they can help you in the marketing and selling and nurturing of your contacts to becoming leads. So definitely go ahead to the episode description and click there, register for, attend, see what he's going to teach us about leveraging our marketing strategies effectively. So lots of stuff there. So let me come back to this. I also know you work from home, Chris. What advice do you have for those who are also working from home, especially with a young family, like you have young children? We're in this new COVID world where so many of us are still working from home. What challenges does it bring? What opportunities has it brought working remotely like you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like you say, especially nowadays with how many people are working from home. So I would say there's a few things I've learned that may help someone listening out there. One is pretty obvious. Just make sure that you've got a dedicated workspace. Hopefully a separate room. When I first started my business, before I had an office, before I had even a house that I could even have a separate room in as an office, I worked from the dining room table, and that was incredibly difficult. At the time, I had two little kids running around, and so you got to figure out how you can have a dedicated workspace. Of course, another thing I would say is figure out what your morning routine needs to be, and then stick with that as much as possible. When you go to an office every day, you typically wake up at a specific time. You shower, you get dressed, you get certain things done in time so that you can leave at a specific time, and then your commute to work is often what helps you wake up and really get going and ready for work by the time you get to the office and sit down at your desk. And so, when you're working at home, you don't necessarily have that structure. And so what I found that helps me is to act as if I am going to an office, right? I would plan to be at work every day at a specific time. I would shower and get dressed and do whatever I need to do in the morning so that I can make it to my desk at home on time, and then figure out. And then, once you do that, then you got to figure out what you need to do first when you sit down at your desk. And so, there's a lot of opinions out there on what a morning routine should be. And I've spent some time researching it, and I'm always looking for ways to improve myself. But what I've realized is that everyone's different, I think. And some people need to start their day on the big picture stuff, and when their brain is at their most creative state. For me, what I found is best is to dive into my to-do list and knock some easy stuff out real quick. Checking stuff off the list gets me in a productive state. It gets my energy up. And so, I only spend about 30 minutes on that to-do list, just enough to check some things off. And then I dive into some bigger picture things and then come back to my to-do list later in the day. But being able to quickly check some things off in the morning is what primes my pump. And so If that works for you, great. If it doesn't, figure out what works for you in the morning so that you can get a strong start. Because if you don't start strong, it's really hard to be productive throughout the rest of the day. And that leads to maybe the next thing is just figuring out ways to stay energized. That was something. It's hard to stay energized at home because you don't have the energy of an office and coworkers around you, and so you got to figure it out. Tony Robbins teaches that motion creates emotion. And so if you find yourself in a state that you're not being really productive, get up and go do something physical, walk around. Maybe you need to interact with people, whether that's your family or maybe you're interacting with coworkers online or someone online. I like to get up and go hang out with my wife and kids for a little bit. I like to use music to match whatever I'm doing to increase my energy levels or help me get focused. And so you got to figure that out, because that's one of the most difficult things that working at home is you start to just have these moments of lull and before you know it, you're just surfing social media and wasting time. And so don't let that happen. The other big thing I would say that has been a lesson that I've had to learn, and it maybe took me too long to learn it, was don't let your work bleed into your personal life. I think, before people might think, oh, working from home, it's easier to balance work and personal because you're home, and it's the opposite. Like, you got to pick a time when you're going to end, and then end and cut it off. In the beginning with my business, I would sometimes end at 5, sometimes end at 7, sometimes end at 8, sometimes I'd end at 5. I'd go have dinner, and then I'd be like, oh, I need to go do something. I'd run back to my computer and do it, and then eventually my wife spoke up and told me that's not cool. Like, it's not a healthy way to live for you or your spouse and kids. And so I would say make sure that you have a structure, and that you say, hey, at this time I'm going to be done working, and you got to be good at putting that work away, because if your office is a few steps away, it's sometimes too easy to just go back in there and start doing some stuff.
Well,
so
first of all, I think everything you shared is spot on. Can't say enough about routine. Whatever you choose that to be, you definitely just need to get into that work state. And for me, it was getting dressed, it was getting showered, it was getting into the mindset by going through that routine. So very important. I'm fortunate that I'm back in the office. I prefer being back in the office, but I've worked from home. And like you, I found that I could get sucked away from the office into family things, and vice versa. I could get sucked out of the family into work things. And I'm by nature a workaholic. I could find what I thought was going to take a 5-10 minute period of time takes me an hour. And it's like, oh my heavens, it just got away. And before I know it, it's not 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. It's now 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So you do need to have some boundaries, and I like how you describe that structure. The only other thing I would add is working from home sounds great, but there's been a number of conversations I've had recently with people that work from home where they admit that they could literally go the entire day without going outside. And it's like, dude, you need to get out. And so go walk around the neighborhood, go to a park. If you've got animals, take the dog to the park and let it run around. I mean, you need to get out.
Yeah.
And so,
go work at a cafe for half the day.
Exactly. So working from home has a lot of perks, a lot of benefits, but especially in the economy that we're in, where so many people have been forced to go home, perhaps not by choice, you've got to make the most of it, have the routine. And I just suggest, in addition to that, just make sure you're getting out. You've got to get out.
Yeah,
last question, and then we're going to wrap this up. You work with a family member. You work with your father directly. It's a business that you've got together. You've got your wife there at the house working from home. But what advice do you have for those that work with family? Many of the people listening, they probably work with either parents, they're taking over the accounting business from a parent, they work with a spouse, or they work with a sibling, and here they are in that family dynamic. What would you share doing so yourself in a family business?
Yeah, I might not be the best person to answer that question just because I've been lucky, but there's definitely pros and cons when you're working with family. I think when you're working with family, it's really important to set boundaries and to be good at not letting family conflict into business. You got to be able to separate personal issues from professional ones. And I get it. That's a lot easier said than done for most people. I've been really fortunate because my dad and I are, for the most part, we get along really well. We trust each other 100%. We share the same values and work ethics. And, ultimately we look out for each other's best interests. And so, every once in a while we have our moments of frustration, but for the most part, it's pretty easy for us. That being said, one of the things that has helped us that we had to figure out was just clearly defining our roles in the business, and then making sure that each other's responsibilities, making sure that we understand each other's responsibilities and that we respect that. That's probably for us been the biggest thing, because we're both, I guess you would say C-level, right? We're both basically the owners. And so sometimes we butt heads a little bit on the direction and certain things. But at one point we realized we got to sit down and just we've got to clearly define what our positions are, what our rules are. There's a really good book called the E-Myth
Yep.
Revisited. I'm sure you've probably read it. Someone recommended that book to me, and that's when it hit me. I'm like, okay, now, this is what we're missing in my business. I've got to do this with my dad and with our business, so that we're very clear on what each other's responsibilities
Perfect. Thank you for that explanation, and I can identify with it. 3 things that you shared that really make a lot of sense. You said in there personal and professional, keeping the 2 separate. I have fired my best friend, and actually a few friends. I've fired them, and professionally, it was the right thing to do. Personally, it was hard. And if you can distinguish between the 2, you can maintain those relationships. The second thing is I've worked with husbands and wives that own businesses and work together. I've worked recently, like days ago, was working with 2 sisters and a cousin that ran a business, and they were having issues. And like you said, it's the responsibilities. And what I would add to it is what really can make the difference and remove emotion from the situation is just having clear expectations. What is it that you're expected to do in the role that you have? And if you can lean on each person's, let's say, skill sets or preferences and identify what are the metrics that each is responsible for, it just comes down to black and white. Either they did or they didn't do it, period. And so you can remove so much of the emotion if you can just get to the point where it's, you said you would do, you agreed to do, you're the one that's responsible for, did you do it? Yes or no, period, done. And so that really has helped so many of the conversations I've had. So thank you for that. Let me go ahead and just summarize a few things, and then I'm going to come back to you, Chris, for just a closing thought. So real quickly as a summary, what I think is really important from this is Chris has helped identify that when it comes to marketing, the content, the copy, the words that we're using can really be quite compelling and I think useful when really figuring out what it is that we offer as services and how we communicate that message to our potential clients. If we can come up with the right terminology and from a marketing perspective be compelling, it will draw customers to act and look for more and find out more. The next thing that I thought was hugely important from this discussion is Chris taking the time to explain the value of technology and how we can be using that to leverage of all the things that we're doing, the thing that's perhaps one of the most important and valuable in its time. And if we could just automate and systematize a lot of the things that we know should be done and can be done to help us grow our businesses, that would be a huge step forward and help us actually do so much more with our company. So the next thing and I think this is great, is the work from home advice. It's what so many people I think are experiencing today. So if anything, get your routine. I suggested getting outside. And then lastly, the idea of working with family, just keeping it distinct between personal and professional and not letting the emotions creep in and having very clear and distinct expectations and roles. So much in today's episode. The sponsor message, this one's unique. I encourage you, I implore you, just because I know what Chris can say, just because of the many conversations I've had, you want to go to the episode description and get the information you need to listen to, attend, watch, and see, as Chris will be sharing with us essentially what technologies we should be using, what they look like, what ones we should be considering, what options are out there, so that we can literally see what can we do to simplify our work, especially the marketing and sales processes. If you want to get clients easily and more efficiently, this is the thing you need to be hearing. And so we're going to be covering all that. And I appreciate Chris taking the time out of his day to share that information. But it's going to be a visual presentation, like a webinar that you're going to be wanting to see so that he can illustrate and show what we're talking about when it comes to CRMs, automated email messaging, text messaging, calendaring, social proof. I feel like, funnels is what he talked about. I mean, so many things that you can expect to learn about in that next thing. So go to the episode description for that. And then lastly, what words of advice do you have, Chris, as we wrap this up?
I think you did a fantastic job at recapping all that. I probably just want to just second what you're saying, is encourage people to go watch that webinar. I'm really excited with what we're going to be sharing there. We dived in we just barely touched on some of the things today that we're going to dive into deeper on that webinar, and I'm really excited about that because there's some very simple, easy things that business owners can be doing, like getting new customers consistently, getting new clients consistently doesn't have to be difficult. There's some very proven and simple processes and strategies that don't require a lot of time. They don't require a lot of money, and you can put these things in place and be able to grow your business at the pace that you want to grow it at. And so it's all about knowing what to do and then just implementing it. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about on that webinar.
I love it. Chris, you're so well spoken. You're so knowledgeable. I look forward to learning from you. I always learn. And more importantly, I end up implementing things that I'm not doing that I ought to be doing just because of the things that I learned from what you share. So I'm excited to do this. So join us for that. Last thing, definitely go back and listen to our other episodes. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. There's so many tips and tricks and nuggets that you need in order to build the premier accounting firm in your area. With that in mind, understand this: if it's about accounting, it is universal. So for more information about how you can apply these principles in your business and do more for your company, feel free to reach out to us here at Universal Accounting Center. You can go to universalaccountingschool.com. Also, you can call us. Just give us a call, 801-265-3777. Take care, have a great day, and remember, accounting success is universal. Take care.